ready.
Hello and welcome to Radical TV. We're here at Oulton Park for the second round of the Radical Clubman's Cup. Now this is the first time that we've covered it here on Radical TV, so we're looking forward to getting to know some of the drivers. We have 23 gentlemen and lady drivers out on the track here today, and we've got two 20-minute races, so we're looking forward to some close racing. Hope the weather holds out. It is looking a bit changeable at the moment. So we're looking forward to race one of the Clubman's Cup here at Oulton Park, and it's the first time we've covered it here on Radical TV. So can you explain a bit about the championship itself?
Yeah, the Performance Direct Radical Clubman's Cup is a single driver, two sprint race format during the weekend. Well, the Super Sport class is by far the most popular. It's for the burgeoning class, the Super Sports, the SR3 and the SR3 RS. By far Radical's most popular model. We've built over 600 of these to date. These cars are raced all around the world, and really the SR3 1500 is the car to beat in this championship. Another very popular class in the Clubman's Cup is the Pro Sport class, which is for PR6s and 1300 Pro Sports. Again, these are RPE Suzuki engines. The class is for 1300 and 1340 cars. PR6 is a single seat design. It's a little bit lighter than the SR3, slightly lower downforce. So in some of the circuits, particularly the high speed ones, these tend to be a little bit quicker. The Club Sport class is the third class that we've got in the Clubman's Cup. It's a great way to get into radical racing, very, very cost effective. And in the Club Sport class, you've got either the 1100 Club Sports, which are the original radicals, really the cars that we built right back at the very start in the late 90s and the early thousands, which is very, very cost effective, very cheap to run, very cheap to buy, and the SR4s as well, which is a great little car.
Simon, you've been racing with Radical for the past 12 years, is that correct?
It's very scary to think back that long, but yeah, I think 1999 was when I started, and I've run the Club Sport for a lot of that time and just switched to the PR6.
Yeah, I've heard that you had the same car for about 11 years, is that correct?
I'm not sure that's entirely correct. I think I've had 3 Club Sports in total, but the last one I think I have for about 7 or 8 years, yeah. And
wow, and so what brings you back year on year? What got you into Radical in the first place?
Just always wanted to do it, and they're fantastic cars and great fun and cost effective. So I stuck with the Club Sport for quite a long time. I did a few other races, SR4, SR3 and a few other series, but I kept my Club Sport because it was great fun. But now obviously I've moved to the PR6, which is a nice step actually.
So Graham, you're about to head down to the assembly area for race one of the Clubman's Cup here today. How long have you been racing with Radical?
This is my second season of racing with Radical. So I raced the Club Sport last year, which I had for 3 years, and did some track days. Thought I needed to kind of test out a bit and go a bit quicker. So got in the Club Cup last year and enjoyed it, and was reasonably competitive, much to my surprise. So and then decided I'd change up to an SR3 towards the end of last year, and have another go this year in the middle of the pack.
And you're racing with your daughter here today. Yeah. That's quite an unusual father-daughter combo. How did your daughter Jennifer get into it?
Yeah, it was just a mad idea that we had one evening, probably over a glass of wine. And she graduated from uni last year, and we were chatting and said, well, why don't you have a go? And she said, oh, I'm not sure. She's not raced anything before. And so here she is, having a go.
So Jennifer, you're racing today with your dad. How did you get into radical racing?
Well, Dad raced last season as well, and just came home one day and said, would you like to try it out? And I thought, oh, that sounds pretty good.
So had you been to watch him?
Yeah, I'd been to a couple of his races last year. Both of them weren't very successful, and I started to worry that I was a little bit cursed, but it looks like it's going okay this year, so it's great, yeah.
Excellent. And there aren't many girls out on the grid there today, are you the only girl today?
Yes, I'm the only girl, but it kind of works in my favour. Yeah. So you can blame it on being a girl, or you can say, yay, check me out, I'm the only girl. So there's never a downside.
Either way, you can't lose. So Bill, I hear that you've just changed to this PR6 from an SR3. What made you change your car?
Oh, lots of reasons really. It's a different car. I've not had one of these before, the Pro 6. I've had a Club Sport before, and we've sort of gone full circle and going back to grassroots really and enjoying the car. It's good.
Okay, and obviously single-seater, what does that make a great deal of difference?
It is a little bit lighter, maybe not quite as stable as the SR3s, but a lot of fun to drive though, these cars, a lot of fun.
So James, we're literally almost ready to go for race 1 of the Clubman's Cup. You have had such a busy day so far.
Yeah, they don't like to keep me out of the car for very long, so yeah, do that.
And how comes you're doing both series today, the UK Cup and the Clubman?
Well, I'm entered for that all year. It just sort of fell on this day that it's everything in a day, so nice and busy.
25 cars went out to qualify this morning, and they make their way out of the assembly area onto the grid for the first of today's 2 races in the Radical Clubman's Cup. A varied and very colourful grid of Clubman's cars. We're in car with Bradley Smith, the 20-year-old, with 13 years of karting experience for the start, as the red lights go out now. Away we go, good start from Bradley Smith as he makes his way past one row and another 2, so he's already up past the 66 car of Timothy Lyons as they head towards Oulton for the first time. In to lead the race goes Tony Wells, so it's Wells from James Abbott. Everybody cleanly through Oulton, which is good to see. A couple running a little bit wide. In car with Gary Baxter as we head down the avenue and in towards Cascades. That very quick left hand as the road just falls away. Gary Baxter though taking very nice line, very busy in front of him as he looks to pick his way up from the midfield. Now into the quickest part of the circuit, with Wells taking the early advantage from James Abbott, and then Mark Boot also well up in the lead of the Pro Sports class. It's the Super Sports class cars, however, of Wells and Abbott heading the way through Shell Hairpin the first time, using the banking to full effect as they then have the short sprint to the first of the 2 chicanes. Britain's good battle there being headed up by Steve Burgess, who has got the 13 machine of Simon Garmston right on his tail, jinking through under braking. Very tight sequence of corners this one, then up over Hilltop before they plunge down the hill towards Hizzies, another of the tight chicanes. This is a great hopes lap from Tony Wells as well, because he's got very limited racing experience as Mark Abbott looks to the inside of Paul Marsham. No joy there, turning into Hizzies, then out of Hizzies into Knickerbrook and up over Clay Hill. One of the most exciting parts of this Oulton Park circuit. It really does undulate around the Cheshire countryside. Out of Druids and on towards Lodge to complete the first lap, and Tony Wells continues to lead, and actually James Abbott really hasn't been able to draw himself on terms with Tony's challenge, although he's got a good run possibly up over Deer Leap and on towards Old Hall. It's a very short start and finish straight. James Abbott looks to the inside in the 74 car. It's Tony Wells, number 35, who turns into Old Hall, maintains his lead with Mark Boot in very close attendance in 3rd position. A bit of a gap back from them to Steve Burgess, who's leading the rest of the field through. It's a very nice battle, that one, for 4th place as well. Several cars involved. What about this 3-way tussle for the lead, as Tony Wells still sporting the novice cross in the rear of the car. It means he's done less than 10 car races, and here he is leading James Abbott, who won one of the opening rounds of the season at Donington Park, so he's in some very fine company. And at the moment, the pressure doesn't seem to be telling at all. So snicking down the gears, under braking, left into Britain's, then right, just going over the curves, being careful to avoid those tyres, then looking for the best possible run over Hilltop, which he gains, and then plunging down the hill and into Hizzies. Again, very tight chicane this one, but the exit is crucial because it really does set the drivers up for a good run through the rest of the lap. And Tony Wells has got a great exit, but so has James Abbott. That's an absolutely beautifully presented car. We go in car now with Graham Ridgway, under braking into Hizzies, being careful to go onto the grass, which is quite damp from the rain this morning, but he clips the curb, puts back down to early, and around he goes. No harm done, he gathers it up quite nicely. He's just going to lose a couple of positions. You can see the outside of Graham's car there as he finds first gear, gets back onto the grey stuff and back into the race, waiting for a gap in the traffic. Here is the fight for 4th position, and what a fight it is, with Paul Marsham on the tail of Darren Anley. A pair of them looking to still chase down and demote Steve Burgess, because Burgess, who is busy defending from the 67 car of Gary Kane, and Kane was looking to make the manoeuvre into Old Hall as well. Nigel Place in hot pursuit of Gary Baxter as the next gaggle of cars comes through, with the beautiful British Racing green car of Timothy Lyons under a little bit of pressure there from Bill Henderson in the number 7 car. as the dicing continues throughout the field. That's Doug Carter looking to make up some positions as back to head of the race, and Wells and Abbott have just broken away from Mark Boot. Boot, however, is continuing to lead the Pro Sport class, and he's doing a very fine job as this fantastic fight for 4th position turns through Ireland, as we've still got Steve Burgess defending from Gary Kane, who locks up the brakes into Ireland. Slightly optimistic, that Gary, I think, because there wasn't really a Radical's width on the inside, but he went for it nonetheless. So Steve Burgess gains momentary breathing space. So Simon Garmston, that is, who is well up. So some good battles. Yes, Garmston going very nicely in the 13th car as they climb up over hilltops. So here comes the fight for 4th position, under braking into Hizzies, and then we've got a little bit of a gap back to Mark Abbott, who's also going very nicely, as it's Gary Kane who continues his pursuit of Steve Burgess in the sky blue number 2 car. It's Gary Kane in the orange and white machine, and then Simon Garmston, next man through, in the white and red car, and then it is Mark Abbott who's heading up that next train of cars into Lodge once more for Tony Wells. And this is an absolutely brilliant performance from Tony, because he really is just not at all fazed by the pressure of leading the race on one of the more challenging circuits here in the UK. The undulations and the mixture of speeds in some of the corners really does make it a real challenge for the drivers. And Tony Wells is going around like he's been going around Oulton Park for absolutely years. Back to the midfield fight, which is Bradley Smith, who is under all sorts of pressure from Timothy Lyons. Bradley Smith, we're in car with him for that electric start, and he's now busy defending those places that he gained off the line. At the same time, though, we've got Lyons, who is also having to do a little bit defending from Andy Cummins, and it's Cummins who's piling the pressure on through Oulton, getting the power down nice and early. Nervous on the pit wall, as is ever the way for the helpers. That's Timothy Lyons' pit crew, as this leading tussle that we have enjoyed throughout the race, and still James Abbott just cannot prize the opening to get past Wells. This is absolutely great stuff from Tony Wells. He really is in command of the race, and he would appear to be pushing no harder than he absolutely has to, and it just looks as if he's got James Abbott very nicely under control. There is Mark Boot in 3rd place and still continuing to lead the Pro Sport class by some margin. Here comes Gary Kane in 4th, so Gary Kane has picked his way past Steve Burgess, and Burgess has slipped down the order, so it's Gary Kane from Paul Marsham. And then we've got this nice little Pro Sport battle that is going on. It is Mark Abbott and Richard Stables. Abbott in the red car, Stables in the black machine. They're having a great fight, and with the best view of that is Gary Baxter. So Gary Baxter watches the 2 Pro Sports as they climb up over Clay Hill, back to the leading duo, and still Tony Wells leading James Abbott, and at the moment Abbott has got nothing in his locker to try and find his way through. So into another lap of very short sprint over Deerleaf, and then braking into Oulton. You can see the road just falling away, and then it begins to pick up again as the drivers look to get the power down. Not an easy corner to negotiate at all. So Bradley Smith coming under all sorts of pressure now from Andy Cummins, with Timothy Lyons the next man through. Those cars have been pretty much conjoined all race long, which is exactly what we want to see. And Cummins looking inside Bradley Smith, not sure he's quite close enough into Wells Hall, and Lyons relatively content hold position with Bill Henderson just in hot pursuit. Then it's John McLeod who heads up the next gaggle of cars as we follow David Franklin through Oulton in his pursuit of the cars that head the field. But it's last lap time and into Lodge for the final time. It looks as if we're going to have a lights to flag victory for Tony Wells. What a drive for Tony Wells. He becomes the 3rd winner in the 2011 Radical Clubman's Cup. Up over Deerleaf, final time the checker flag goes out, and look at Tony, he is delighted, punching the air in joy. So Tony Wells takes the win, having had James Abbott, his ever-present shadow, all race long. An absolutely brilliant battle between them. 3rd place going to Gary Kane, and then the next man through is Mark Boot, who therefore wins the Pro Sport class. So Mark Boot claims Pro Sport honours with Paul Marsham across the line in 5th position. What about the fight between Mark Abbott and Richard Stables? Because Mark Abbott goes to the move on Richard Stables into Lodge for the final time, but then he slides a little bit on the exit. So Stables draws alongside. This is for 2nd in the Pro Sport class, and it goes on the line to Richard Stables. So Richard Stables taking the place by just 13 thousandths of a second on the line. As through Lodge for the final time goes John Morris, the Club Sport leader, and it looks as if John is going to hold on. Up over Deerleaf he goes, so John Morris claiming the Club Sport honours. Solid drive for John and mixing it with some of the more powerful machinery, so I think he'll be very happy with his drive. Well, a great first race of the day for the Radical Clubman's Cup here at Oulton Park, and it's down to the pit lane and Lucia.
Well,
Well, some very happy scenes there behind me. You can see that Tony Wells did manage to hold on to his first place, and he has come first here in the first round of the Clubman's Cup. Also behind him, I see that James Abbott also managed to keep his original qualifying place in second, and I think that is car number 67 at the back there in third. Let's go to the podium and have a chat with them. Okay, Tony, just 20 minutes ago, I was talking to you, you're saying this was your first race out here. Well done, first place.
Very much indeed, I really appreciate that, yes. It was a lot of fun. The most difficult thing was obviously getting off the line. I'm not sure my start was the best, but it was enough to keep in front of James. And then just had to go flat out for the entire 20 minutes. I mean, he was just there in the mirrors, never quite close enough to get me, and then I'd pull away, and then he would get back, and it was very it was just like 20 minutes of qualifying.
Were there any points at which you thought he might sort of get ahead of you?
Well, he was faster through. I was faster through the first turn, then he would pick up time through the next two turns, and then through the chicane he was quicker, and then I was quicker through the rest of the circuit. So the gap would pull away, and I'd think, oh, relief, and then he'd come back again, and it was like watching this the whole time. And then, but just looking at me lap times, it was just literally like qualifying the whole time. I've entered in the Clubman's Cup and also in UK Cup. So, yeah, I'm going to be a bit tired by the end of the day, but it's great fun.
So, Mark, you've been first in the Pro Sport class, so congratulations.
Yep. Qualified second in class from 8th to 3rd by the first corner and just held on.
And who were your main competitors out there?
In my class, Simon Garmston and Mark Abbott, but I never saw them, thankfully.
That's quite handy then.
Yeah, under a lot of pressure by SR3s, but held me class, that's the main thing.
Okay, David, thanks so much for joining us here from Motorsport Vision Racing. I know you've had a really busy day. This is the first year that Radical has joined you, is that right?
That's right, everyone at MSVR is absolutely delighted that Radical has joined us for 2011 and beyond. This year we're working very closely with Radical to assist them with organising their two UK domestic championships, Radical UK Cup and the Radical Clubman's Cup, and we're just delighted to have them with us.
And how have you been able to help them this year so far?
We've been working with Radical to organise their calendar. And this year we will be having both Radical Championships on the brand new Stetson 300 circuit and also the magnificent Brands Hatch GP circuit in June, and obviously today here at Oulton Park.
We're here in the assembly area for race 2 of the Radical Clubman's Cup. As you can see, it is raining quite heavily now, so all of the cars are on their wet tyre setups. We've even seen some last minute changes and adjustments happening in the last couple of moments, so it should be a really exciting race.
It's fantastic. The boys have just managed to go out and buy an umbrella. Now I'm absolutely soaked.
Oh no.
And I'm stood there with it over their heads.
So how's this going to affect your second race here at the Clubman's Cup?
I actually really like driving in the rain.
A few people have said that. Why is that?
It's a bit more exciting. You've got to use a bit more skill in the rain, you know, looking for different lines, avoiding the spray, you know, driving completely off the line, the normal dry line. So yeah, it's great fun.
So would you say it's sort of a bit more of a skilled drive to do today?
Yeah, it feels more of a sense of achievement if you, you know, put some quick laps in. So that's what I'm hoping to do.
For race 2, how do you feel you're going to do in terms of the people around you?
I'm going to go very gingerly, let them all fall off and win.
Yeah. Sounds like a great plan. We wish you best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks.
Well, contrasting strategies in the assembly area for a race that's going to be run under really quite atrocious conditions. The heavens opened about an hour ago. It's been very windy all day. And unfortunately, the Radical Clubman's Cup drivers were rather getting the worst of the weather. We're Rinko and Gary Baxter for the start. The red lights are on. You can hear the revs rising. It's going to be a little bit gingerly off the line. Away we go. And slithering away, but everybody seems to be off the line cleanly. It's a good start from Jay Blowett. You can see in the middle front of the screen it's Abbott who turns into Oulton in the lead of the race, just from Darren Anley in second position, with Mark Smithson in the black machine turning through in third. Everybody cleanly through, which you want to see. But look at that spray being kicked up in the midfield. You can barely see anything at all. Well, proof of the pudding, Rinko and Bradley Smith as we plunge down the hill towards Cascades. He's going up the inside of Mark Boot. So Bradley Smith, well, we can't see anything. He obviously can, because he makes the move on Mark Boot and picks his way up the order. So Bradley Smith, a lively start to the race from him, as indeed he had in race 1, but at head of the field it's James Abbott who's got the advantage over Darren Anley and Mark Smithson. So Abbott, who spent the whole of the first race getting a very fine view of Tony Wells rear wing. This time around, he has got the best view in the house because he has got no spray kicking up in his eyes, so James Abbott will hope to be able to streak out to that advantage. As Tony Wells heads up the next group of cars, he has got Paul Marsham and then Bradley Smith in the mix. So Bradley Smith has worked his way up to 6th position from that start, and he was well down on the grid on the outside of row 9, so 18th place on the grid from Bradley Smith up to 6th place. And we're in the very early stage of the race as they enter Hizzies for the first time. Already James Abbott pulling away because we've got Darren Anley and Mark Smithson engaging in battle. Then we've got another trio of cars, and then immediately behind them, so the first 9 cars all very much engaged in battle. The Pro Sport leader Mark Boot is there in 7th position as Paul Marsham in 5th place chases Tony Wells over Clay Hill for the first time, with then the very fast starting Bradley Smith in 6th. Well, here comes the race leader, and already James Abbott beginning to pull away just a little bit from Darren Anley, who has still got Mark Smithson for very close company. So Smithson, the black machine, chasing down the yellow, grey and white machine of Darren Anley in 2nd place as Anley turns through Lodge, climbs up over Deer Leap and on to complete the lap, kicking up the plumes of spray. You can see just how wet it is here at Oulton Park as Anley turns through O'Toole in 2nd place with Smithson in 3rd. Here comes the fight for 4th with Paul Marsham trying to do what he can about Tony Wells and Bradley Smith. Not sure we can see much really at all. And then the next fight through, which is Mark Boot, and then Nigel Place is very much in the mix there. We've got Andy Cummings, I think, is the sandwich in the black machine. Well, coming through the murk, here is the Club Sport race leader, it's John Morris, and then a fantastic fight going on behind them. It's David Franklin and Jennifer Ridgway. It's Jennifer in the black 88 car and David in the orange tinged machine, as David Franklin looking to make the move with Jennifer Ridgway as they go over Dearly. That's a brave move as we go back to the fight for 4th and 5th position, with still Paul Marsham trying to pick his way past Tony Wells, but Wells, as leading trio, have just pulled away slightly, has now got a relatively clear track in terms of spray ahead of him, so he's able to pick out his lines a little bit more easily, and that makes it far harder for Paul Marsham to find his way through. So under braking into Britain's, is there any opening there for Marsham? I don't think he's quite close enough. So they've had a bit of an instant, and that's Jennifer Ridgway who's gone off. She's absolutely fine. She's coming out of the car. Shows just how strong these radicals are, because she climbs out with barely a scratch on her, and the marshals helping her back over the barriers. Well, continuing to lead the Pro Sport fight is Mark Boot, who's under all sorts of pressure from Nigel Place. And, well, Place in the wet weather, I guess it is fine for Fish, because he is having a far better run in race 2 than he did in race 1, and he's all over the tail of Mark Boot. Here is the fight still for 2nd place, as Darren Anley and Mark Smithson remaining in that order, with Smithson just not quite able to get on terms with Darren Anley just yet, as the race leader James Abbott turns through Old Hall once more, and this is looking very good for him. Here is the Nigel Place and Mark Boot fight. You can see Mark checking his mirrors to see which side Nigel Place is. The answer is that he's immediately behind him as they climb over Deer Leap. Nigel Place well positioned to make the move into Old Hall. They've got Andy Cummings, who is way clear of them as Place moves to the inside, and through he goes at Old Hall. Mark Boot not really contesting the corner, so Nigel Place moves up a position as the race leader James Abbott continues to streak away at the head of the field. Looking very good for James here. Really is a very assured performance in incredibly tricky conditions, as we have the safety car. The safety car's gone out, so Jennifer Ridgway's car, I think, slightly exposed, so short safety car period. The safety car lights already out, showing what a fine job the marshals have done, as we're about to get racing once more in the 2nd race today for the Radical Clubman's Cup, as it's now the responsibility of James Abbott to pace the field as they go up over Deer Leap and back into action. But look at Mark Smithson, he's got a great run on Darren Anley already on the restart over Deer Leap. Now is this Smithson's opportunity to challenge into Old Hall on the restart for the first time. He's got the inside line, but Anley just holds his footing around the outside. That's brave driving from the pair of them, but Darren Anley remains in 2nd. Smithson just onto the curbs, giving him a bit of a slither, as still Tony Wells and Paul Marsham remain as they were, with Marsham just unable to find his way through. So I'm afraid it's back into Spray City for Mark Smithson as he continues to sit in behind Darren Anley. It was a good run he had on Darren as they arrived into Old Hall, but as they arrive into the Shell hairpin, it's Darren who's just been able to build himself a slight buffer of a couple of car lengths. If anything, Darren Anley, with the gaps coming down, has got designs on closing in on James Abbott to win this one. So Abbott turns into Britain's with Darren Anley in very hot pursuit. And then Mark Smithson there in 3rd position. Up over Hilltop they go. Both drivers doing well to steer clear of the white lines, which in these conditions will be absolutely treacherous and then down into Hizzies. Is this going to be an opening for Mark Smithson? I don't think it is. Potentially, actually, for the fight for fourth, because there's 4 of them scrapping over that as second and third continue on their way out of Hizzies. Then we've got Tony Wells from Paul Marsham with Bradley Smith also very much in the mix, and Andy Cummings there or thereabouts too. So the first 7 cars really quite closely matched. A little bit lower down the order, this is Bill Henderson, who has got Brian Murphy right on his tail. So the 7 car of Henderson leading into Britain's Brian Murphy in the all red machine right on his tail, having a good little tussle in the Pro Sport machines. They've got one of the Super Sport cars homing on their tail, and then the Club Sport of John Morris, who is relishing these wet conditions, and John Morris really mixing it with some of the more powerful cars around him, because that's John McLeod in the number 14 car, who is on the tail of Brian Murphy. He's going to find no joy there at Hizzies, because Brian sticking to his racing line and making John Moment do the hard work, and that's try and drive around him, and no such opportunity has presented itself thus far for him to do that. And what about this from midfield battle? It's Richard Stables who heads up the fight from then 77 car of Gary Baxter, with also another fine showing from Simon Garmston, although he is coming to pressure from Sean Mellors in the bright yellow car, which you can pick out in this spray as he pressurises Garmston. Also well up in that fight is Graham Ridgway in the 55 car. Sean Mellors looks to the inside, he makes his way past Garmston, and Graham Ridgway does the same thing. So Simon Garmston rather hung out to dry there at Old Hall. He left a Supersport whip on the inside, and fortunately as a result lost 2 positions. Race leader James Abbott continues on his way, and he's been able to build what is looking like a very nice advantage, and he really has just taken advantage of having no spray, no distractions, able to pick his lines out on this rapidly drying circuit now. As he comes over Hilltop, we haven't quite got a dry line emerging, but it's certainly, compared to the start of the race, a lot less damp than it was. And then what about the 5 seconds? That continues on its way. Darren Anley with Mark Smithson just behind him. Out of Hizzies goes the race leader. Into Hizzies goes the 5 second, and it's changed. Smithson's gone through, moves up into second ahead of Darren Anley. So Mark Smithson goes into second place. Darren Anley demoted into third, and this is in the very closing stage of the lap. This is going to be hugely frustrating for Darren Anley, because we've only got a few corners to go, because out of Druids, the final time, comes the race leader James Abbott. So Abbott just Lodge and Dearly between himself and what has been a very fine and commanding race victory. He turns through Lodge with absolutely no problems at all. He now just needs to plant his right foot up over Dearleaf. He goes, the checkered flag is ready and waiting, it goes out, and James Abbott takes the win in what has been a very challenging race for him, very difficult conditions. He's adapted to them superbly, and he claims his 2nd win the 2011 Radical Clubman's Cup season. We've got a spin on the last lap, and it's Graham Ridgway, but Druids, no harm done for him, as the Pro Sport leader Richard Stables, under pressure from Sean Mellors. Well, Stables has got the class win, but he doesn't care. He wants to keep Sean Mellors behind him. Under braking to Lodge, plants the Pro Sport on the inside, so the Super Sport machine from Sean Mellors, no way through there. They go up over Dearly, and this has been a great drive from Richard Stables. He's been a very entertaining driver today, and Richard Stables claiming a very well-deserved Pro Sport class victory. 2nd place in Pro Sport is Mark Boot, you can see coming across the line just behind him. So Richard Stables really relishing these wet conditions. And here is the Club Sport race leader once more. It's John Morris. Morris again has really had a fine battle. He's just ahead of Doug Carter and David Franklin. They are dicing all the way to the line, but I think that John Morris is going to hold on when he wins his class, and he keeps the 2 cars at bay as well over the line. Well, it's been a difficult race for the drivers in the Radical Clubman's Cup. Very tricky conditions, but we've had some great action, and 3 happy drivers on the podium.
James, you're absolutely covered in champagne. Obviously, the winner here today again. Well done.
Yeah, really pleased with that. I don't know, everyone was mucking about it, really. It felt easy.
You had an incredible start there, didn't you? You made up quite a lot of places.
Yeah, my throttle was a bit sticky, and that seemed to help, so I'll have to do that in the future.
Have to remember that in future.
I don't like the wet.
Well, there wasn't much we could do about it here today.
No, not really, but never mind. Another 2 hours, it'll be a dry line.
Excellent. Will we be seeing you over at Brands Hatch?
Yeah, I'll be there, yep.
And how did you find the track in the wet?
Oh, I love it. It's very tricky, but I love it in the wet. It's brilliant.
Everyone's split down the middle on that one.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely brilliant. I wish it were wet every time, really, apart from getting wet, but it's...
I think that was the champagne there.
It's great fun in the wet, yeah.
Well, that concludes the Radical Clubman's Cup here at Oulton Park. We hope that you've enjoyed the racing. It's the first time we've brought it to you here on Radical TV, and we'll be seeing you next time at Brands Hatch. Thanks for watching.